Welcome to the Health Wrap, and this is Doctors on Call with myself, Carolyn Sawyer, and Carla Winfrey. Hey,
Hi,
Carla.
Carolyn. How are you?
Hanging in here. How are you doing?
I am doing okay. I know a lot of us going through the pandemic, people worried about your physical health, but one of the things we're going to talk about today is a health challenge that affects everyone. And no matter your age, your race, your gender, where you live, mental health has no zip code, as clinical psychologist Dr. Sherry often says. And in some communities of color, there's a stigma. But mental health, like physical health, we treat our bodies, yes. We also need to treat our minds. And today we're going to look at what employers are doing. We'll look at teletherapy. What is that like? And we have some mental notes and hear from some folks who have gone through grief. They fought depression and stressors while in isolation. And we'll hear a story of hope from a woman who knew at 6 that something was wrong. But first, we're going to take a look at what's going on with our beloved children and young adults.
Kim Rodriguez and her family were living in the U.S. Virgin Islands when the number of COVID cases started to rise across the globe mid-summer last year. To add to that stress, her dad had been battling health issues 1,800 miles away in her home state of Tennessee. Kim decided it was time to visit Nashville.
They were actually advising us if we didn't have to come back to the Virgin Islands right away, to stay in the States.
Kim's beloved dad passed away in January, and she became concerned about how her daughter was grieving.
At the same time, my daughter, as she felt really upset, she wouldn't open up and cry. And so I didn't force her, but I told her it's going to be times that this will happen. And I told her that is absolutely normal. You have to do that in order to be happy again. I said, now, if you're sad all the time, then we need to talk about that, because that's not normally the way it should be.
I'm still sad, but I feel a lot better because I actually got to keep one of his pictures, and it's right back there on my table.
According to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, life-changing events like a move or death have been even harder for some children to deal with in the pandemic, affecting their social, emotional, and mental health. Additionally, some kids may struggle from depression with setbacks in academics, isolation, food insecurity, violence at home, and the lack of outside activities such as sports.
I think intentionally addressing mental health challenges is going to be huge because we know it's only going up, and unfortunately it's only probably going to continue.
John Solomon is the editorial director of the Sports and Society program at the Aspen Institute. It is an educational and policy studies organization headquartered in Washington, D.C. The Institute's Project Play initiative is collecting information on how the coronavirus outbreak is impacting youth and school sports organizations.
I think there's been data showing more emergency room visits among youth, due to mental health, suicidal tendencies. It's all major concerns. And coaches are right there at the front line. They're the ones who often can see some of these children every single day. And there are ways to probably get them some really basic education and training about how to talk to kids, how to listen to kids, where you can then take them to the right person.
We essentially operate as surrogate parents for these kids. So whether it's in the classroom, whether it's on a dorm, whether it's on the field, we know these kids very well.
Ash Davis is a teaching fellow, football and lacrosse coach at Woodbury Forest High, a boys' boarding school in Virginia.
Men are not good at expressing our feelings. Surprise, surprise. I'm really happy to see the school take initiative on is addressing toxic masculinity and trying to break down some of those norms and let boys know it's okay to not be okay. A lot of boys go see the school psychologist kind of regularly, whether it's an issue or whether it's just to check in.
A lot of times, college students are talking to their best friend. They're talking to those sorority sisters or line brothers, or they're just talking to those professors that they have a meaningful connection to in some shape, form, or fashion. So when we look at those avenues, we see that they are actually reaching out for help.
Dr. Thurman Webb is the coordinator of the Licensed Professional School Counseling Program at Tennessee State University in Nashville.
This is about problem solving at the end of the day. And so sometimes when we recontextualize or relabel what it means to be mentally healthy and to categorize it under problem solving, or just, we know conflict resolution is there, but sometimes we have conflict internally just with ourselves. And so we need some help in just kind of sorting out all the pieces. And then we help you come up with a solution.
So, Carolyn, one of the questions a lot of parents have, they want to know, well, how can I tell if there's a difference between just challenging behaviors as a child or emotions that are normal growing up? Well, the National Institute of Mental Health says that your young child or young adult may benefit from an evaluation or need some treatment if they have frequent tantrums and outbursts, often talk about fears, worries, and self-harm.
I was looking at some of these as well, or they cannot sit quietly except when they're playing video games, or they sleep too much or too little.
They may have difficulty making friends, their grades may drop.
Or they are avoiding social activities with friends or family, or they have periods of highly elevated energy.
And they think something is trying to control their mind. So those are just some tips that parents can use and other family members when they're watching the behavior of children and young adults.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the pandemic itself has caused all of us to think differently about our mental health.
And today, Docs on Call intern Brooklyn Gumby shares how COVID-19 has changed our minds about how we get support for mental health.
A pandemic and the height of the digital age has come with its own set of challenges and changes. In October of last year, only 20% of over 5,000 people surveyed regularly worked from home prior to the pandemic. That number had since grown to over 70% of the same survey participants. During the same time, schoolgoers and administration alike battled with the challenges of online learning. Among these changes lived a boom in mobile media and networking unlike any other. Connecting with the ones who matter most, including yourself, has never been easier. Over the course of last year, the U.S. saw a huge upswing in social media, therapy apps, and video conferencing apps. One such app is Clubhouse. The new social media app features real-time drop-in live audio chats to connect users around the world. Marsha B., currently a Clubhouse moderator for Black Girls Do, spends her time on the app advocating for mental and spiritual health and sharing tips she found helpful throughout the pandemic.
To be able to connect with other people who are going through similar struggles, understand maybe isolation, understand what it feels like to lose someone who had COVID, understand those who think COVID's not real, like there's a room for everyone. And so I think that's sort of how Clubhouse set itself apart from all the other social media apps.
Today's world puts information, connections, and even mental health help right at our fingertips. Let us know on Facebook, Instagram, or wherever you watch our show how you have been navigating the pandemic in the digital age.
More and more people are turning to telehealth for mental health support and accountability.
Our Docs on Call intern, Caroline Landry, shows us how this simple process works.
If you're having a hard time mentally during this pandemic, you're not alone. Pew reported that 1 year into the pandemic, 21% of adults in the United States are experiencing high psychological stress. Unfortunately, finding help that best fits your needs can be really hard. So where do we start? First of all, where do you look? If you haven't heard, virtual visits with your provider, called telehealth, are now covered by a lot of insurances. Call your insurance to see what providers are in your network with telehealth. Additionally, for those uninsured, local community centers, support groups, and emergency services are important lifelines. Great website to find a therapist that maybe meets some identities of yours is inclusivetherapist.com. you can also search online. Once you found a place that looks promising to you, reach out and schedule an appointment. Make sure you say your name, that you want to make a first appointment, and that you're a new patient. And make sure to leave your phone number or your email. In case speaking on the phone makes you a little nervous, just like me, we made a script for you so that you can follow along if that's helpful. Here it is. Make sure you also start thinking about what you want in a therapist and what goals you have for your time. For example, I want to feel less overwhelmed, or I want to feel more encouraged, or I want a therapist who just listens. I want a therapist who asks a lot of questions. So now that you've found a therapist, let's set up your call. Make sure you've downloaded the required apps or software to take your call. Make sure you find a quiet, safe, and comfortable place to take your call, and make sure that you have privacy if that's possible. If you can't find privacy in your living space, try sitting in your car or find a safe place outside that can suit your needs. Make sure to check your internet or cell connection before you log on for your first meeting to make sure that your time and your conversation will not be interrupted. Good luck. You got this. This is Caroline Landry for Docs on Call.
Lots of good advice. You know, I can't help, though, but think about the reality that we've learned in this pandemic. Well, we didn't learn it. We knew it. Broadband, not across the board. So if you wanted to have telehealth, it might not be possible because of that. I was also intrigued at the need being so great. I think the therapist she spoke with was saying in the winter months, you had people who hopped in their cars in order to stay connected to the therapist and to talk and to carry out their meeting because it was something they needed to do. This has been a tough time. I was reflecting on how you and I spent many years as reporters covering really tough stories, everything from, murders, plane crashes, car accidents, you name it. But in the last year, I realized that the technique we had used for so many years, which was to do the work, go home, come back, do the work again, do more work, and just keep pushing it down, has probably not been the best answer. And I think, like so many others, the load of this, it feels like it's just all coming down at one time in terms of the loss. And that's been probably my mental note that I've made to myself as I've lived through this last year and losing lots of friends.
The first loss was Gary Jenkins, a brilliant entertainment attorney and everybody's favorite summer DJ on Martha's Vineyard. In Boston, Donna Morrissey used an iron fist to command a Boston news desk. Eventually, she would manage international crises for the American Red Cross. From Houston, Eugene Foney and I became fast friends once I discovered he actually walked around with art masterpieces in a tote bag. He helped make my daily views more colorful. In South Carolina, Ed Carter was the man who kept me anchored on television. We delivered together good news and bad to viewers for several years. And Willie Scott, a mutual friend, set us up for lunch 40 years ago. It would launch a family friendship through his NFL years, his coaching years. Scotty and I remained friends until the end. My mental note to self: stop and give yourself time to grieve.
Everyone copes with stress differently. Take steps to protect your mental and emotional health. Take breaks from news and social media. Eat healthy, well-balanced meals and exercise regularly. Find the time to relax and participate in activities you enjoy. Talk to someone you trust about how you're feeling. Find the balance that works for you.
The COVID-19 pandemic has changed our lives, but one thing that hasn't changed is the need for routine vaccinations. Vaccine-preventable diseases like measles, flu, and pneumonia haven't gone away and can cause serious illness. Protect yourself, your family, and those around you by staying current with routine vaccinations. Talk to your healthcare professional and stay up to date on all recommended vaccines. Learn more at www.nfid.org.
Isolation has been difficult. It felt like I was being sent to timeout and I had to stay there for a long period of time. Somebody forgot to knock on the door and tell me I could come out. Normally I dance. It was therapy. I do a Chicago step and I do Detroit ballroom. So I couldn't do those things. We did get on Zoom some and we would talk on the phone, but it's not the same as having somebody twirl you around on the dance floor. You don't realize how the impact of seeing someone else, your eyes meeting together, that's important. God did not create us to be isolated. He created us to be social beings, to gather, to fellowship. I started to have to find other ways, and it became through walking and spending time outside, just really appreciating nature. I am eating breakfast out on the deck, the same little birds that are coming by. So I had to remind myself, when Scripture says that the Lord cares about everything, He feeds everything, that even in that isolation, He was continuing to feed my spirit.
Love that, girl.
It shows you that there are some new things that you do find out about yourself in the midst of something that seems like a struggle.
Yeah. And we all miss so much, but great advice, some really good advice.
Yes. Well, our next story, Carolyn, is basically just unbelievable. This is about a woman who knew when she was in elementary school something was wrong because of the thoughts that she was having, but no one would listen to her. And she became an adult and a series of incidents and tragedies happened. And what would have taken most people out, it has made her stronger because of her faith and the treatment that she received.
I think it's a stigma in our community because we're not supposed to talk about stuff at all.
By initial appearances, Dr. Shanice Holloman lives a pretty picture-perfect life. But you have to hear her entire story of perseverance. An energetic educator, a sought-after motivational speaker, loving wife and mother, author of several books, and a high-profile member of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated. Yes, she gets noticed. But as a little girl, she was an attention seeker using negative behavior.
I was also molested as a child, and nobody believed me. And so I started, coming up with all kinds of stories and lies and all kinds of things just so that somebody would say, "What is wrong with you?"
Her loving family had a code of silence, like many African-American families.
I mean, I grew up in with parents and grandparents that said, what happens in this house stays in this house.
But today, she is an open book, exploding across her social media platforms with words of wisdom and encouragement. This pastor's wife reaches the masses by telling her story filled with joy and pain.
I was 6 years old, and I remember it very, very clearly. It was a Saturday morning. I was fascinated with the idea of what would happen if I mixed these pills with this alcohol. I remember being sad and then not knowing why I was sad. So as I got older, I began to realize that I didn't necessarily want to die as much as I wanted the pain to stop.
Through life's ups and downs, Chantrice learned how to manage her depression with therapy and her faith. Finally, it seemed like it was smooth sailing. She and Reverend Holloman were on the mountaintop.
We were in the best season of our life. Everything was going well with me. Everything was going well with my husband. We were just in this really wonderful place of just all the pieces were coming together.
Then, on Father's Day 2017, a gut-wrenching phone call from the pastor at her husband's hometown church.
He said, "I need you and CJ to get in the car and come to Brunswick now." And I remember sort of watching my husband as he was driving. And I remember him saying, "Something horrible has happened. I don't know what it is, but something horrible has happened." And I remember feeling in my spirit, I was like, oh my God.
Here is the home where these three people were found dead Sunday. We've seen family dropping by the home throughout the day. And right now, the GBI is going door to door, hoping for answers.
Someone came in guns blazing and shot and killed, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, and, my bonus, how do you wrap your brain around that? And so The depression came in not just from that loss, but also my husband is hurting. You know, how do I support him and not being able to fix it?
Less than a year later, more tragedy. Dr. Holloman suffers a massive heart attack.
According to my family, I coded 9 times. But nothing but the grace of God brought me back. And then, you know, it's like, okay, I had a heart attack. Okay. So, you know, when do I leave? But then I realized that my legs didn't work.
Chantrice kept holding on to hope. The doctors prescribed physical therapy. It did not work. Infection raced through her limbs.
And the doctors came in and said, well, we're going to have to amputate your leg. What do you mean we have to amputate my leg?
For this 5-mile-a-day runner, it was the start of a series of hurdles, resulting in several amputations on both legs.
The depression pummeled me. The suicidal thoughts pummeled me. I was fighting for my life, legitimately.
The faith leader was angry at people and God. In rehab, she met a chaplain who helped her process her thoughts.
That piece right there, being able to be honest and just say, God, I don't understand. I'm really upset. This makes no sense, was the beginning of the chains breaking for me. Getting therapy was the next step.
And then the fight was over. She embraced her new life by surrendering her old life.
I realized that for me, my depression came from me holding on to what my life was and what I had set up in my mind my life was going to be. I didn't know that I could be this happy in a wheelchair with no legs and not able to walk on my own. I didn't know that this kind of joy was possible. But it is. I'm in a really, really good place. God is real, and his joy is real, and it's just all real. It's real. It is.
Wow, what an inspiration.
Yes, she is one of the happiest people that I've ever met, and her courage is just unshakable.
You know, you have to remind yourself, I mean, on those days that you want to have the pity party, you realize that, you know, there are folks that are so much further off and having challenges and struggles through it all. But that's not to negate that, you know, the depression is real. And she talked about that. And I appreciate that. What a story. Thanks for sharing that with us, Carla. Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome. One thing I wanted to point out, because a lot of people may be thinking, well, how do you have mental illness incidents, or how, you know, this is caused by genetics. Just like you have heart disease in your family, you may have heart disease, environmental factors, and chemical imbalances. So just like I mentioned, heart disease, diabetes, or asthma, people take medicine, they get treatment for heart disease, asthma, and diabetics. And you can get treatment if you're having a mental health challenge.
I don't know if you remembered a while back that even Michelle Obama said she felt like there were times she had low dose depression. And I've always believed that most of us have some low level graded. I think the important thing, and that's what we've been talking about, is being able to make the distinction and then look for whatever way works best for you and your family to address that so that you can get the help you need.
And Carolyn, speaking of health, let's look at what employers are doing. Employers have to adjust to many demands of employees, adjusting mentally to the pandemic.
They actually had a study in Business Insider that looked at about 236 employers. And the company said about 53% of them were reporting providing special emotional and mental health programs for their employees. In another survey, 63% of the employers say that they plan to increase already existing child care benefits. So I think they're hearing and understanding that there is a need and a demand out here.
Yes. Now, here's a breakdown of what some companies are doing. Target and Starbucks are giving access to mental health apps and therapy sessions. Federal Realty and James Capital Advisors have continued to support employee wellness by promoting virtual telemedicine, free counseling sessions, and mental wellness check-ins.
And Kaiser Permanente is actually picking up and providing funds for childcare. And then I think there's one more company that's doing some great stuff.
Caesar Sinai also is doing that. So Since the start of the pandemic, we've seen a positive reform in employee assistance programs, and hopefully that will continue.
Absolutely. I have to tell you, that graphic could be useful for anyone who's watching and needs to go back to their employer to make the case as to why this is necessary. Those companies are being very progressive in taking the lead and can provide some guidance and examples for other corporate citizens.
And I think this is going to continue for a while. In fact, it may be the change, one of the big health changes with companies across the country.
Absolutely.
So we'll be back right after this.
All right.
Let's get back to spreading the word without spreading concern. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
Did you know that you might need to get tested for COVID-19 more than once? If you're out and about in the community, DHEC recommends that you get tested at least once a month. Getting tested regularly helps diagnose those who may be asymptomatic and helps slow the spread of the virus. Learn more about how often you should get tested and how to find a testing location at scdhec.gov/COVID-19 testing.
The old adage goes, laughter is like medicine. And I think we can all agree we could certainly use more of it right now.
Absolutely. And I am blessed to have met a new friend. Allison Moore is in Virginia, and she's a comedian. And we actually met over coffee because she actually sells coffee. She has a coffee business. And we just started and struck up this great conversation. But she too recognizes that laughter has helped so many during this time.
Hey y'all, hey! I am Virginia's comedian, Allison Moore. And beginning of this pandemic, I said to myself, a little quarantine, oh, I'm good. As long as I got Wi-Fi and my kids, I'm gonna be all right. Here we are a year later, and I am sick and tired of looking at Wi-Fi and my kids. Hey! Times are different and they still are hard. And when I'm not telling jokes or drinking coffee, I try to keep myself uplifted and my spirit pepped up by dancing. Gotta get your boogie on, y'all. Listen, we ain't got time to be down. It's heavy enough out here with all that's going on. So in our song, it's titled I'm Up. And the dance break says the only time we're down is when we're dancing. Because we tell ourselves that the only time that we get down is when we dancing and boogie it. You get it? Too much? Okay. Here are the lyrics. The only time I'm down is when I'm dancing. In the shoulders, in the knees. Don't you be at the house and hurt your knees now, okay? In the feet. And in the back. Shout out to all my twerkers, huh? So get up wherever you're at. Want you to dance with us and smile and feel better. Come on.
And the only time I'm down is when I dance in the shoulders, in the shoulders, in the shoulders. In the shoulders, in the shoulders, in the shoulders. In the shoulders, in the shoulders, in the shoulders. And the only time I'm down is when I dance in my knees, in my knees, in my knees, hey. In my knees, in my knees, in my knees, hey. In my knees, in my knees, in my knees, hey. And the only time I'm down is when I dance in my feet, in my feet, in my feet, hey. In my feet, in my feet, in my feet, hey. In my feet, in my feet, in my feet, hey. And the only time I'm down is when I dance in my back, in my back, in my back now. In my back, in my back, in my back now. In my back, in my back, in my back now. It's time to get up.
Remember, you got this. And if you get down, what you need to do, boogie, oogie, oogie. I'm comedian Allison Moore. Toodles. I'm sorry I gotta bring my kids to work. You gotta do what you gotta do. I mean, you see, I can't get the people to cut my grass any other time. They had to cut my grass today too, huh? Y'all had to cut my grass today too, huh? Back over to you, ladies. Come on, everybody, have a good day. Toodles.
I mean, another dancer, and she's got energy. Check this out. The coffee company is called Black please.
Oh wow, you gotta love the little kid though.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. She has such a wonderful spirit, and we wish her all the best. We'll stay in touch with her, but just great energy, and love what she's doing. I told her you should be in high demand with people coming back to work because you can cheer them up.
Well, you know what, Carolyn? I was in a conference today, and I've seen several other companies. They had 4 comedians today, but other companies. So these comedians are going to get a lot of work. Companies are bringing in comedians.
We're talking to her about a couple things coming up. But if you're planning a conference, Allison might be the person you want to talk to hold people over and then breaks, make them laugh. Start the day with coffee, black, please. Love it. Listen, it's been a great show, very much needed, and hope that someone was watching and it touched their heart, moved their minds, let them know where they could get some help, or at least started a conversation. And that's the reason you and I went into journalism in the first place. So we did it.
Yes, we did. And, be compassionate to yourself and to your family. And remember, get the help because your mind matters. And so do your family and your friends.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Carla. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Docs on Call is proud to partner with the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, Gwen Ifill College of Media, Arts and Humanities at Simmons University, along with the School of Social Work, the Program in Public Health, and the President's Advisory Council on Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion.